Man, well, hey, why don't you go ahead and have a seat? And man, just want to say it's so good to see you all here this morning. My name's Tyrone, by the way, and the pastor here. And we're in this series called The Trassure Principle. Thanks so much. You guys appreciate the worship team and that band leading us here this morning? You just appreciate them. Give them a hand. Appreciate you guys so much. So we're in this series called The Trassure Principle, and it's based off of this book. Every once in a while we like to use books, and there's some great principles in here. This thing is loaded with scripture. If you haven't got it yet, a bunch of you told me you got it. If you haven't got it yet, I thought I'd encourage you to go on Amazon. It's just a few bucks. Get this book. It is so good. As you can tell, it's not very big. It's not like this overwhelming book, but I promise you'll enjoy it, but also you'll be challenged by it. It's really good. And so I'm just pulling out some of the principles, some of the stuff that's found in this book, and I believe that God is going to use this stuff that we're looking at over these next couple of weeks to really change our whole perspective on life. That's really what I'm after, that you and I would have a completely different perspective on our life, and that perspective would be one that's eternal, an eternal perspective. Now, I'll never forget years ago, it was a week in July, I believe, summer of 1997, when something tragic happened, and it hit the news all across the world, and it was the death of Princess Diana. You remember this? Those of you that have been around long enough to remember this. Okay, Princess Diana, great lady, obviously very famous, wealthy, royalty, all this. People around the globe knew who she was. She was very famous, very well known. And when she died, tragically, man, it just hit the news all across the world big time. I remember the news was inundated with what was going on and about her and her life and all this. And I don't know if you remember this, but on that very same week, do you know that other lady that's pictured in that picture with Princess Diana, Mother Teresa, also died the very same week. It was this interesting week in world history because two very prominent ladies entered into their eternity. Now, the crazy thing was, and I remember this very clearly and vividly, partly because I was reading a book about Mother Teresa at the time, so it was kind of ironic, but I remember the news was all about Princess Diana, but they really didn't mention much about Mother Teresa. It was kind of like this afterthought. And oh, by the way, this sweet old lady died as well. You guys remember this when this took place? It was, her death and her passing was completely overshadowed by Princess Diana. And I think maybe one of the reasons was the tragic events that surrounded Princess Diana's death. But I think it's bigger than that. It really goes to, we aspire to be like a Princess Diana. We love, her royalty and all that. We identify with that. But it's hard for us to identify with this sweet old lady who was very poor and gave her life to the unwanted and to the people that were left abandoned in the slums of Calcutta. We have a hard time identifying with that lady. Oh, we honor her. We think, oh, that's nice of her. I'm glad that she did that for her. But, man, we identify more with Princess Diana. And so the world really mourned Princess Diana, but they were just kind of like, oh, that's kind of a bummer about Mother Teresa. It was fascinating to me. Two ladies who lived their life. And as far as I know, Princess Diana was a good lady. And as you can see, they knew each other. They met each other on several occasions. But a tale of two lives that were lived. But now they're gone. They both have left this earth. Where are they now? The truth is, that's going to happen for all of us. We're going to leave this earth. And how we live our life, just like I read in that scripture there, just like we talked about, is going to determine really where we spend eternity. And so I want us to have this eternal perspective in life. The treasure principle really is this. It really is challenging us with this thought of whenever we step into eternity, whatever we have right now, we can't take any of that with us. Nothing. So the treasure principle, in a sense, in one sentence is you can't take it with you, but you can send it on ahead. And that's good news. You can send it on ahead. Now there's this short one-sentence parable that is really used to be the center of this treasure principle. Matthew 13, Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had, and he bought that field." Why did he do that? Because he realized that what he was giving up was nothing in comparison to what he was obtaining. And so when you and I discover the power and the importance of the kingdom of God, we realize, hey, it is worth giving my whole life and giving up everything to be a part of God's kingdom. That's the value of the kingdom of God. Whatever I let go of pales in comparison to what he is going to give me and what I can experience in his kingdom. So that's what that parable is speaking to. So we looked at that last week. We talked about key number 1, which is God owns everything. I'm his money manager. It really belongs to him. All the stuff that I got, which, by the way, I was told once long ago, it's okay to have stuff, just make sure that the stuff doesn't have you. Whatever I have, though, is stuff, it's all going to be gone. And so I just want to make sure that I have this proper perspective of my stuff, and that's, he owns it, really. It's his. And I just want to be a good manager, a good steward of all my stuff, especially of my finances. So here's key number 2 we're going to talk about for the next few moments. Key number 2 is my heart always goes where I put God's money. You're going to find this to be very true. As I talk about this, it's going to make sense to you. Your heart will always go where you put God's money. Remember, it's his money, right? It's his money. It's not mine. But where I put his money, that's where my heart tends to go. Okay, so Matthew 6, Jesus says a few words this is the Sermon on the Mount. And this is kind of really a bigger description, a broader description of that one-sentence parable. But Jesus says, do not store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourself treasure in heaven. So again, Jesus is commanding us to store up treasure. He wants us to have treasure. He's not against treasure. He's not anti-treasure. He's not saying treasure is bad. He says, I want you to have treasure. Just make sure you're putting it in the right place. So store up for yourself treasure in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. And then it goes on to say, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Okay, key number 2, my heart always goes where I put God's money. Where my treasure is, that's where I'm going to find my heart. Those are the words of Jesus right there. In a sense, Jesus is saying, hey, show me your bank account ledger, and I'll show you where your heart is. Because that speaks loudly, volumes as to what I value, what my passions are, and where my heart is in life. Where your treasure is, that's where you're going to find your heart. And so maybe you find yourself in this place thinking, man, I wish I had more of a heart for God. I wish I had more, maybe you thought this, I wish I had more of a heart for missions. I wish I had more of a heart for those heavenly treasures that Jesus talks about. Well, if you find yourself in this place thinking that, longing for that, let me encourage you with this. Start sending your money that direction. Start sending your money towards missions. Make sure that God, this is your money anyway, so I'm giving back to you. And you watch what God does to your heart as you start sending your money to the right place. Because your heart will always follow where you put God's money. For years, my family, Amy and I, we've supported this Compassion Child. Some of you support Compassion Children or maybe another type of sponsorship program. And I love Compassion. I wholeheartedly believe in this program. We started about 7 or 8 years ago supporting this kid from Africa named Judical. At least that's how we think you say his name. We're not quite sure. But we call him Judical. So we talk about Judical a lot. We'll pray for him. We'll have conversations about him. We will get letters from him and hear updates about him and his family. We're really invested in this kid, and we want to know how is he doing, how's his life, how's he making it. He's in an area where he could get HIV. HIV is very prominent in his part of Africa, and so that was one of the concerns. Is this going to be a kid that's going to contract HIV and all this? But we're very concerned about this kid and his life because every month we send money his direction, specifically for him. And so it's just a case in point of when I'm sending money in that direction, I want to know, how is he doing? What's going on in his life? And we love it when we get letters from him and he draws pictures for us and gives us updates about how he's doing and all that kind of stuff. Because this is really that principle of my heart goes where I put God's money. And do you know what I learned long ago is that God, he's not really after my money. What he's really after is he's after my heart. God doesn't want your money. God isn't looking for donors for his churches and for his kingdom. He's looking for our heart. God really doesn't need our money. He just wants us, and he wants what's best for us. And that's what we got to understand with this principle. And so it's important that you and I live these lives where we're fully surrendered and our heart is fully his. It's not really about money. It's about our heart. And if we make it about money and it's hard about money, but that shows us where our heart really is, right? So it's more about our heart than it is about money. And even when we know that and we desire to live for God and we want to be people who give, for many of us, we find it's a struggle. Why is that? Why is it hard to give? I think there's lots of roadblocks that end up in our life. There's these internal roadblocks, and sometimes it's an insecurity issue. Sometimes there's an unbelief. Maybe I don't really believe in this. I don't really believe in God. Okay, that can be an issue. There can be pride in our life. Maybe there's some idolatry taking place in our life. Maybe we have this desire to control, this desire for power. Okay, lots of roadblocks that we can have in our life that keep us and hinder us from giving. But let me give you a key that's going to help you with this. Okay, this is key number 3. Key number 3, heaven, not earth, is my home. This helps us as we look at our stuff and our money and our possessions. Heaven is my home, not earth. The author, Randy Alcorn, he says this. He says, I'm convinced that the greatest deterrent to giving is this: the illusion that earth is our home. We get stuck in this mindset that this is all there is. This is what's really important. This place right here, earth. This is my home, and so this is what really matters. And that hinders us from being people who give and fully trust and surrender to God. Hebrews 11 speaks to this, and I love Hebrews chapter 11. This is the Faith Hall of Fame. It's all these great men and women of faith, and this is how they viewed their life. Hebrews 11, verse 13 says, all these people were still living by faith when they died, which I think that's great. I pray that for all of us. I pray that you're living by faith when you die. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, which that's an interesting statement right there. Okay? And that in itself is a whole other message. It says they admitted that they were aliens and strangers on earth. Anyone asks you, do you believe in aliens? You can say, yes, I do. I believe in aliens. It's right there in the Bible. I'm an alien, you're an alien. Okay, people might be weirded out by that. Okay, so you might have to explain it further. But they admitted this. I'm an alien here. I'm a stranger on earth. Verse 14, people who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they'd been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country. Is there a longing within you for a better country? Well, let's be real right now. There's a lot of people in the great US of A that are longing for a better country right now, right? Okay? There's a lot of people. We could go down that road, but let's not. They were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. And who else? For you. As you stay faithful to him, he's got a city and a house prepared for you. Philippians 2 says this. Actually, it's 3. I lied. Philippians 3. But our citizenship is in heaven, and we eagerly await a Savior from there, the Lord Jesus Christ. Where's our citizenship? Is it on earth? No. It's in heaven. See, it's important we understand this key. Heaven, not earth, is my home. There's going to come a time when I part with all of my money and all my possessions. The only question is, when? We don't know. But that's really the only question, when? And so as I stand up here in front of you this morning, honestly, I come to you with a very, very heavy heart. Very heavy because of some friends of ours. Sean and Vanessa, and some of you don't know Sean and Vanessa. She's our youth pastor and our admin. Sean runs the sound, and wouldn't you know, this week put in a brand new sound system for us. As he's doing that, finds out his mother gets really sick, and now it looks like today will be her last day on earth. My heart is heavy for them, my friends. My heart is also heavy because my own family is walking through the last days of my grandma. 2 weeks ago today, my family received the news that my grandma went to the hospital, had some procedures done. The doctor said there's nothing else we can do to help her. We're going to have to send her home on hospice. Tough news for any family to hear, right? My family were very close. I grew up in a small town with all my family all around me. I went to church every Sunday with all my grandparents there. I'm a very, very close family, which I've since learned is pretty abnormal, but I'm blessed because of it. And so to be far away from my family and my parents and my grandma at this time is very hard. This grandma was here this Sunday 3 years ago when Amy and I were installed as the pastors of this church. That's how close I am to this grandma. Her and my grandfather would winter in Yuma every winter. Now that I live in Arizona, I know why. It's like, okay, this is a great place. I want to live here and visit there. I'll go visit my family and I'll live here, not vice versa, all right? So she happened, my grandfather passed away 8 years ago. She still was coming down to Yuma, so she made the drive. She was here when we were installed 3 years ago, and it was a very proud moment for her and for us to be together in that moment, because she's my spiritual heritage. I'm a believer in Christ because my grandparents committed their life to Christ decades ago. So she's sent home, and this is her last days. I'm struggling on being away, and me and Amy were talking. I decided last second, I'm going. I'm flying. I decided at 10 o'clock at night, at 4 a.m., I was up heading to the airport. And I got to spend the day with my grandma in her home. And I knew this is potentially some of the last conversations I'd have with my grandma in her home. Very hard, but very, very special. Heard stories I'd never heard before. Got to talk about how she helped put on all the sheetrock in that house that they built back in 1962. Like, wow, Grandma, you're pretty amazing. This house is better than the house that I live in right now that was built in the 90s. I wish you'd have built my house, Grandma. And so it was a special, but also just a tough time as, my grandma is really facing days. Maybe weeks, depending on how long she holds on. She's a fighter, but days, this is the end. And I was thankful that I could go and be with her maybe one last time in her house. I'm sitting in her house. I'm looking around at all the stuff in her house. I've seen this stuff there for years. Pictures on the wall that have been there for over 40 years. You know those houses? Okay, you've been in those houses, right? Your grandparents. And so I'm just looking at all this, and I'm thinking, man, pretty soon, Grandma's going to be gone. She's going to graduate into heaven. It's a hard thing, but it's a great thing. And all this stuff's going to be left here. My dad and his brother and his sisters are going to have to deal with all this stuff and sell the house. All this. It's all there. She's going to leave all of that and be in a way better place, but it's all going to be left there. Why? Because you can't take anything with you wherever you go to in eternity. Okay, remember, that's the treasure principle. You can't take it with you, but you can send it on ahead. So here's what I'd love for you to do, just a little exercise to help us understand this principle better. Can you grab your program, and on the back side of your program, there's a spot to take notes. If you're not already taking notes, I'd encourage you to start right now. Hopefully I'm saying some things that are good enough to at least think about later on. It's always my prayer and my hope, okay? As you write down some of these keys and these principles and these scriptures, it's good to go back and study and dive into this deeper. So here's what I'd like you to do. On the back side of that paper, would you write on the left side of the paper, would you write a dot? Draw a dot. And then from that dot, draw a line to the right. Before you get to the end of the page, draw an arrow at the end of that line. Okay, so you got dot, line with an arrow. Okay, so the arrow obviously signifies that line could go on, but you ran out of paper. Essentially, that line means it's going to go on for forever. That dot represents our life on earth, and that line represents life in heaven. Now think about the image there. How big is that dot in comparison to that line? Even just the room you have on that piece of paper. And isn't it interesting that we find ourselves so consumed by the dot and we neglect even thinking about the line? See, the challenge from Jesus is this. Don't get so caught up in thinking the dot is all that there is. Because, my friends, there's more. There's an eternity, and Jesus is saying, I got a home that is waiting for you if you trust me and if you follow me. And so it's important that we don't get caught up living just for the dot. We got to make sure that we're living for the line, because the dot's going to come to an end. The dot isn't going to last forever. It's temporary. Matthew 10 says this, and if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of the least of these ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you that person will certainly not lose their reward. Okay, so how you live your dot, it matters. So as you help and you serve people, even the least of these, there's a reward you're going to get on the line. So it's important that we understand that now. And this isn't just some good, Christian religious feel-good stuff. Hey, this is truth. You and I have to understand that dot is temporary. Live for the line. Ephesians 6, serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each one of you for whatever good they do. He's going to reward you. Romans 2 says this, God will repay each person according to what they have done. In fact, that statement is said 3 times in Scripture. He will repay each person according to what they have done. According to how we have lived, we are going to be repaid. So here's the deal, guys. We only get one chance at this life here on earth. One chance. There's only one chance at the dot. If you think about it, isn't it crazy how fast life goes by? You can already feel like the dot, oh man, we kind of have this tension inside of us. I wish it would last long and long and long and keep going on, but we get this, you realize life just goes fast. I mean, think about the age you are right now. There was a point that you thought that people who were your age were old, right? And now you're that age. And you're like, well, wait a second, this isn't that old. I'm feeling pretty good. But I'm right? I'm right? Because life is fast. All of a sudden you're like, what, I'm this age now? It is May 6th already of 2018. This is crazy. Life has a tendency just to keep going and going and going and moving on, regardless of what happens. And it goes fast. And so I think it's important for us to develop this eternal perspective. We have to live for the line, guys, not the dot. I'll show you a picture of a guy who's very important to me. His name is John Owens. John Owens is very special to me. He's actually, this picture that I took right here, I look at this almost every single time before I get up to preach. I have this preaching folder that's sitting over there right now, and I put all my messages in my preaching folder. But in that preaching folder, I have this picture. And almost every single time I get up to speak, I look at this picture. This is a picture of Amy's father when he was a senior in high school. And Amy lost her father when she was 9. So this is, in a sense, my father-in-law that I never got to meet. The father of my wife. And I look at this weekly because it's a reminder to me of how short life is. Sometimes before I get up to speak, I'm nervous, I'm anxious, I'm like, I don't think I have anything good to say. I'm tired, whatever whatever I'm feeling. But oftentimes it's kind of like there's this little anxiousness inside of me because this whole public speaking thing, it didn't come natural to me. I've had to really work at this. And the very beginning, it freaked me out. The first sermon I ever preached, I couldn't even do the altar call at the end. I couldn't do the prayer thing at the end. And so I handed it to my youth pastor. I ran to the bathroom and I cried. And I thought, that was miserable. God, are you sure you want me to be a preacher? That was horrible. And I sat in the bathroom by myself and I cried. Okay, that's how I started. Okay, I've gotten a little better since then. And I only cry occasionally by myself in the bathroom now. But I look at that picture because it just reminds me of, man, life is not really all about me. And I just got to get up there and just do my best. A year from now, no one's going to even remember what I said. So I'm going to get up there, I'm just going to do my best. It kind of helps give me the right perspective. Sometimes I'll have little conversations about, hey, John, I'm doing the best to take care of your daughter. I'll have those types of conversations. Because again, it's just good for me to have this eternal perspective. This life is short, and I want to make the most of it. I want to live it to the fullest. I'll never forget this moment that I had years ago. My son was young, he's probably about 1 year old. He's crawling on the living room floor. I'm sitting at the dining room table, and I'm drinking some coffee, and I'm having this moment where I'm like, man, life is good. You have those moments like, man, today is a good day. It probably was sunny up in Washington that day, I'm sure. I'm looking at my son. I got my boy. He's on the ground. He's so cool. This is awesome. I'm just so blessed with so many things. Life is good. And all of a sudden, in that moment, I was hit with this overwhelming sense of, but soon this is going to be over. It was one of those, I guess I could call it one of those spiritual experiences, spiritual moments with God, where it literally thrust me to the ground. I was full of just like the weight and the glory of God and the weight of eternity, and how all of this that I'm looking at, that I'm enjoying, is going to be gone someday. You ever had one of those moments in life? You look around, you're like, Everything that I'm worried about, that I'm stressed about, that I'm even enjoying right now, is all going to be gone. And it was a hard moment for me because I'm like, God, I love this. This is good. I don't want to go. And God just speaking to me, what I have for you is far greater. What I have for you, you got to trust me. I will never forget that moment because it marked me. I've had a few more since then just like that. My hope is that you would have a similar moment in your life if you haven't already. Man, I can stand up here and talk about live for the line, not for the dot, but if you don't have firsthand revelation of that yourself, then you're really not going to fully live an eternal perspective in life. And I pray that you have firsthand revelation. Life is short, but God is good, and you can trust him no matter what. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how depressing it gets, no matter how heavy life is, you can trust him. We have hope, friends. We have hope, and where we're going is far, far better than even what we're experiencing here today. You know, a lot of people, a lot of believers actually struggle with the thought of going to heaven and stepping into eternity. We don't like that thought. It's pretty good right here. And I think the biggest reason for that is because we're putting all our treasures in earth and not in heaven. So you and I, you got to make sure that we're putting our treasures in a place that we're getting closer to, not further away from. You're putting your treasures in heaven. You're getting closer to that. You're closer today to eternity than ever. And some people struggle with that thought, like, heaven, is it really that amazing? Is it really that cool? Like, it sounds to me like we're just going to be singing songs forever in the sky. It's like this one unending sing-along in the sky. It's an eternal church service. That's what it is. And if that's heaven, I'm with you. Like, that doesn't sound like amazing, right? So we're going to go to church forever? That's heaven? Well, the Bible has so much to say about heaven, and it's not like that. Heaven is going to be everything about this life that we love, and it's going to be minus the things that we hate. It's going to be a place of rest and relief from the burden of sin and suffering. There's going to be learning in heaven. There's going to be discovery. There's going to be play. There's going to be artistic expression and service. You and I will actually have roles and jobs in heaven. We will get to enjoy life as it was intended in heaven in the presence of God, which is what will make it that just incredible and perfect. So Jesus said this. He said, and this is what you and I all want to hear Jesus say to us at the end. Matthew 25, well done, good and faithful servant. Okay, keep the faith to your very last day, no matter what. Keep the faith. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. And this is what he says. I will put you in charge of many things now. Come and share in your master's happiness. I think I left my last page of notes right over there in my preaching folder. So I'm getting to the end here, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bring this home, and it's good for me to have my notes because I'll be shorter. Is page 4 there? Yeah, there it is. Sweet. Okay, I need that too. In all of my days of preaching, that has never once happened to me before. Ever. I've heard of guys that like dropped their notes everywhere and they didn't have their pages numbered. They're like, they didn't know what to do at that moment. And ever since I heard that story in college, I had numbered every page. So they're always numbered. Because I'm like, that could happen to me. Again, I was scared of the speaking thing, okay? So I'm like, if that scenario ever happens, I got them numbered and I'm good. Oh, okay, so I just want to make sure I stick on track here. We're going to have a job in heaven. Jesus says this, okay, I will put you in charge of many things. Based upon how you and I lived and how we handled what he gave us here, what we managed, what we were stewards of here, determines what our role and our job is in heaven. That's interesting. That's fascinating. So when you get to that place, you got a role, you got a job. Well, again, that day is going to come. It's going to happen. So how we live today, guys, it really, really matters. And of the utmost importance is you and I just put our trust in Jesus, put our faith in him, and just wholeheartedly following him for the rest of our life. That's what really matters today. So you don't have to be scared about going to heaven. It's going to be a great place. It's going to be far greater than your wildest dreams. Just make sure you're handling the treasures that God has entrusted you with properly. In light of the line and not in light of the dot. Because you can't take it with you, but you can send it on ahead. Send it on ahead. Send it onto that line. Send it on to that line. And Paul said this in Philippians 4. Not that I'm looking for a gift. He's talking about him giving. He's like, it's not that I really need your money. He says, I'm looking for what may be credited to your account. He's speaking to heaven, and there's this account that God has for us, this reward, this treasure that is all being determined based upon how you and I live right now. And that's why, even as a pastor, I don't mind talking about money and giving. It's not because I need you to give money to the church. That's not it at all. It's not because God needs you to give. No, again, he just wants our heart. He wants everything. But what this is for our benefit, because I want you to know that there's going to be something credited to your account for what you give here on earth. So again, how we handle our money, it really matters to God. We see this all over Scripture, especially in the words of Jesus. Last week we looked at the rich young ruler. Remember, Jesus looked at the rich young ruler and he said this. He says, go sell all your possessions. But as you give this up, this is what you're going to get. He says you're going to get treasure in heaven. But he couldn't do it because he valued treasure on earth more than treasure in heaven, which is where many of us find ourselves living. In Luke 16, Jesus said, so if you've not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? What are true riches? Those are the eternal ones. That's the heavenly treasure that Jesus is talking about. We've got to be trustworthy with what we have now, with what he's entrusted with us now. Handle it faithfully, that worldly wealth, however much you have. Handle it with integrity and character, because Jesus says, then I can trust you with true riches. I want to end with this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes on earth, said by this missionary, Jim Elliot. He said, he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. And I love that quote. It's a missionary really who gave his life. He lived his own quote to the fullest, because he believed that his life was even worth spreading the gospel for. Him and four of his friends, they tried to reach this remote tribe of savages in Ecuador. And anytime anybody had come in contact with them, even other government people in Ecuador, these savages would kill those people. Well, they desperately wanted to bring the gospel to these savages. They made contact. They had some friendly contact. They went and flew and landed by this river to have some more friendly contact. Apparently the meeting started out okay, but these savages killed all 5 of these guys, leaving behind wives and children. Why? Because they desperately wanted to get the gospel to this remote tribe in the jungles of Ecuador. That's how passionate they were about Jesus and spreading his love and his hope. Knowing that if they lose their life, it's worth it, because I'm going to lose my life anyway, so I'm going to live to the fullest that which I believe God has called me to do. He's no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. If you know anything about that story, you know there's major redemption in that story. That tribe is now living for Jesus. I encourage you to look into it, because it's a fascinating and powerful story that will move you to tears. But I just want to leave you with those words, because I think it helps us with this eternal perspective. He is no fool. You're not a fool to give what you cannot keep, to gain what you cannot lose. And what we gain in return from Jesus is far greater, guys. Far greater. So here's my encouragement, my challenge to us as we bring this to a close. Next steps right here. These are the next steps that I'm challenging us with in this Treasure Principle series. For the next 90 days, if you have never taken that step to give 10% to God, that tithe, I'd encourage you, the next 90 days, do it. And you watch what God begins to do in your life spiritually and even all throughout your life. You watch what he does as you trust him with that. 90-day tithe, just do it, 3 months. Test him in this, God says. Test me in this. So if you've never done it, next 90 days, see what God does in your life. The second thing is commit to that giving covenant, which was inserted in your program. You all got one of those, right? Okay, this giving covenant, there's 6 things there that you and your spouse, if you're married, can commit to. If you're single, maybe you can have, it says a witness, it's just kind of accountability. But this is, I would love for you just to read this on your own time, to walk through this, study the scripture, pray through this, and if you want to commit to looking at your money and your possessions in a different way in light of scripture and in light of eternity, then you would commit to the giving covenant. And the last thing I would challenge you with is praying for this offering, a special offering we're going to receive next Sunday. Next Sunday is Mother's Day. We're going to have some fun on Mother's Day. We're going to honor all the moms. We'll have a photo booth for the moms and their families. It's going to be great. But we're also going to have a missionary who is devoting his life, him and his wife and their family, they're devoting their life to reach the teenagers of Arizona with the gospel. And so he's just beginning this journey. He's raising money so that he can live and support himself and go after this. And so we would love to be a church that says we believe in you and we want to support you financially. So we're going to receive a special offering for him. And he'll be here next week so we get to meet him and hear his heart and hear Christian and what he's all about. His name's Christian Chambliss. Passionate, young, mighty man of God. You'll love him. But it's just a chance for us to say, we're not just going to pray for you, we're going to support you financially. We believe in what you're doing. And, by the way, we believe in the young people of our church. We want to see God do a great thing in the youth of our church as well. So as I give, and as any of us give, can you just pray, like, God, this is a seed for the revival within the youth of our church. He's going to help us, even within our church, but also all the churches across Arizona within our network. So would you pray about that? What could I give to help this family reach the teenagers with the gospel? Reach the teenagers of Arizona with the gospel. So those are 3 next steps that I think will really help you move forward in having an eternal perspective on your treasures. Would you stand to your feet? The team's going to lead us in a song here, and as we do this, I'm going to go ahead and just open up the communion tables. There's communion tables in the front and one in the back by the cross. If you want to take some time during this song to just say, Jesus, thank you for what you did for me, for dying for my sins, that sacrifice you did for me on the cross. Anytime during the song, feel free to do that. We have some people that would love to pray with you, whatever the need is. They'll be down in the front. I'd encourage you to go to the front and just ask them for prayer. They'll agree with you, whatever's going on in your life. And as always, I just love to encourage people. Respond to Jesus how you need to respond to him in these next few moments. Maybe you need to pray and process through some stuff. Maybe your perspective has been more about the dot and more temporal than it has been eternal. Come on, just let Jesus begin to do a work in your heart right now. So I'm going to say a prayer for you and for all of us, and the team's going to lead us. Let's just worship. Let's lift up Jesus. And in my prayer, I'm just going to pray for those that maybe want to commit their life to Jesus. And if that's you, just pray that prayer. And also, I'd love for you to come and connect with these prayer people. They would love to help you take some next steps in moving forward in your relationship with Jesus. So if you're committing your life to Jesus, then come and talk to one of these prayer people about that as well. All right? Would you pray with me? Jesus, thank you for today. Thank you for the hope that we have in you. And thank you for that. Part of that hope is, Lord, you want to reward us with treasure, which is mind-blowing. It almost feels selfish, but it's so scriptural, Lord, that you have treasure. You have rewards for us in heaven. So, Lord, help us to be people who live in light of that eternal reward. Eternal treasure. Lord, we want to send our treasure on ahead and not live for the here and now, not get stuck in living for ourselves and living for this temporal life and living for the dot. We want to live for eternity. Lord, help us to do that, I pray. By your Spirit, Holy Spirit, I pray that you stir up strength and courage and faith and peace even right now. Right now, Holy Spirit, to be able to live this thing out. Lord, for those that need to commit their life to Jesus, Lord, I just pray that you would speak to them right now. Lord, I just pray that they would fully surrender their heart and their life completely to you and trust in you. Lord, they would find that they have forgiveness for all their sins, no matter what they've done. They have forgiveness, Lord. And once they ask for forgiveness, Lord, that this relationship they have with you is so incredible, so amazing, so powerful. Lord, I pray that they would experience the life-changing relationship that you have for them. In Jesus' name I pray.